Hello and welcome to According to John Unbridled.
Unbridled. Hey, did you hear about the horse that fell in the bathroom? He's in stable condition. All right, comedian. Who am I?
This is my good friend.
That's right.
For 30 years now.
Before we were wrinkled and gray.
Yes. David Ferrell.
We were young and in shape. Now we're just who we are now.
Now we're just A shape.
More cylindrical, cylinder shaped. I don't whatever it is. All right.
Oh,
I've got this off because I can't hear anything in this ear, so
yeah,
it's an age thing.
Deaf in one ear, and
if you see me doing this, it doesn't mean anything because I don't know sign language. Although, so John and I used to go to church together decades ago in the Raleigh area of North Carolina, and so I was helping with the kids, and I don't know why, but we actually had a couple parents who were deaf, and we had there
was a deaf ministry.
We had a deaf ministry, which was interesting because we had deaf congregates, people going to our church, and then we also had people signing for them. But a lot of the people that signed left, leaving the deaf people with no one to communicate with them. I don't know if you remember that. It was probably after you left, but anyway, one of the children. It was after. The worst thing about a church split is when you have a deaf ministry and the signers leave, and it's like, wait a second, you know. So anyway, one of the deaf, I was helping with the kids department, and these are the young kids, you know, the 4, 5, 6s, trying to help out. They always need help in the children's department. And they're like, will you help? And I'm like, well, I guess. So I ended up in there. But there was some kids of the deaf couple. So one of them had a little girl, and for whatever reason, she was like, you know, wanted me to help with this. She was always like, oh, it's Mr. Dave. You know, I was like, yeah, it's me. So she always wanted to come and just sit in my lap for like story time. I don't know what it is, but this little girl had gas every Sunday night. So they're doing story time, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, great. And she turned around, she's like, I'm sorry, Mr. Dave. I'm like, yeah, me too. Couldn't you pick someone else to sit in the lap and then float one up?
No, you're it.
Anyway, I was it.
So I got a question for you before we get.
Of course.
I mean, we're already started. So.
We have started. I started right in with the horse impression.
Yeah.
There you go.
So if you can't hear out of that ear, what difference does it make if you put that?
Let's try this. Hold on. All right.
Oh, that's right.
I still can't hear anything. It does. Let's try this.
It just sets on your head.
There we go.
It's just.
It's probably better. Let's just do this. All right. Anyway.
So the reason that we wear headsets is so that everything is here. You can hear it clearly, and if there's anything goes wrong, you can hear it.
But I can't hear you in the headset at all. Am I deaf in both ears? What's going on here? I can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything?
No. Don't worry about it. I hear enough.
Wait a minute. I hear you.
Well, I don't hear you other than this.
Hold on a minute. You should be able to hear me. All right, hold on. We might have a technical difficulty.
It's okay.
No, wait.
This is what John does with his guests. He's like, you know, we can't hear you. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Here, give me the pair that works.
Hold on a minute.
There's a button on there. Does it turn green?
Oh, you can't hear anything.
See? You know what I was talking about now. That's okay. I'll keep it the way I did.
No, hold on.
Listen,
Don't run.
I'm old. I've been used to working with half whatever for a long time. Check back. We have a technical engineer that's working on it right now.
Yeah, we do. So this one here comes.
Thomas, fix that for us. Thomas is our weekend engineer who's in here looking for that. Let's try it again. There you go. Okay. Hello? No?
Oh, I hear why.
Oh, what's going on?
You're
I'm unplugged. I need my air guitar for the unplugged. There we go. All right. Well, what do you know? I can hear myself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I sound different. Is it still me?
Yeah.
Hello? 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 No? It still sounds different. I sound a little...
No, you sound like you.
Really?
Yeah.
Do I really sound like this?
Yeah.
It sounds a little pitchy wiry, but maybe that's just me.
That's you. That's your hearing.
I got you. Well.
All right. So now I'm glad to see we figured it out.
Yay. All right.
Now I'm embarrassed because I didn't have my equipment hooked up.
It's quite all right.
Okay. Let me see here.
Have you ever done a...
good.
So I did a hayride one time for Christmas at this. So a church brought me in to do a comedy ministry event. Now, what was interesting is this was, I think, 1994. So they wanted me, the actual, what would they call it? The parsonage where
where the priest or the pastor lives.
But it was a small church. So the parsonage was actually in the basement of the church. And they're like, well, we're going to have you use our parsonage, which is the basement of the church, and we're going to go stay somewhere else. Well, while I was in the basement of the church at the time, churches were being burned around the country. And I'm like, you have literally put me in the crosshairs of what could possibly happen. Like, oh, have a great night. We're leaving. You sleep in the basement of this church. Meanwhile, on the news,
everybody's burning down
random churches are being burnt. But anyway,
well,
nothing happened. But I will say, I'm trying to think this story I was going to tell you. So I did the comedy program, and then they had this church had this Christmas caroling hayride in a mountainous area. So it kind of sounded like fun. I'm like, well, I'll do comedy. I'll stay for the Christmas caroling. So they put all the people that were members of this small church, it was only like 30 people, in the back with all these hay bales, and we're going around the town singing Christmas carols to nobody. Right. It wasn't like people.
Because everybody's in the wagon.
Well, yes. And that was part of the problem. But see, people weren't lining the streets to hear us. They didn't even know we were coming.
Right.
So we're coming down like a little mountain road with a tractor and us in the back, we wish you a Merry Christmas. Nobody. And then we would go by, people would kind of open the door like, what was that?
Right,
Did I just hear
so
Christmas
everybody
carols?
missed it.
Yeah. And plus it was 6 degrees outside with the wind blowing, and all I had on was I'm in the back of a wagon wearing a suit coat and just like regular church pants, no coat.
Dude, that's cold.
Trying to remember the words.
Yeah, as you're shivering.
Just, well, plus, when they're getting to the second, third stanza of a Christmas carol, you don't even know what it is. You're just sort of, So, we wish you a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you got to the chorus and then you jump in.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was at there was a church merger in Lakeland, Florida. You always see church splits.
Right.
This church was merging.
Nice.
But what was interesting was they were like, can you present the gospel and everything? I'm like, yeah. I said, they said, oh, you can't. I said, well, am I not able to? I don't know what's going on. They're like, no.
No, like really, I can.
So according to our denominational bylaws, we believe that immediately upon conversion, there's baptism, and our baptismal pool isn't working.
So we're not going to give people opportunity to get saved.
And of course, in my mind, I'm like thief on the cross, stuff like this, but anyway, so I did see a 2-foot sink in the kitchen area. And I was like, well, can't we just fill that up with water and just dump them real quick? And they're like, yeah. So anyway.
So you baptized in the
No,
kitchen?
I just didn't do it, Now there
Sorry,
was,
guys,
hold
as soon
on.
as we get our baptism fixed, you can get saved.
So not only that, so there was a large mega church that I did a show for, and they believed in complete immersion, like completely dunked. This is a true story. So
Where the rest lies?
No, but this is almost not believable. It's so true. So, they had a lineup of the people being baptized. So family shows up because they want to see. It's important, right? So, the person is in there, they step in with the robe on and everything, and they're like, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Ghost, buried with him in death, raised again to walk in newness of life. Well, they videotaped this whole thing for the families to watch. apparently one of the people being baptized, about an inch of their head did not completely go underwater. And so in Monday's staff meeting, they said, all right, so do we need to rebaptize this person because they weren't completely immersed underwater? Right. So can you imagine, like, you die, you're standing before the Lord, and he's like, I got to show you this videotape. So
you missed it by an inch.
You missed it. You literally missed it by an inch.
You literally.
But what would they do anyway? Invite them back a second time? Say, hey, I appreciate you guys coming last week.
We screwed up.
There's a problem. My head's teeny tiny anyway. That's why these things, plus it's not on my ear. I have a small head for like a grown man. So when I played football, listen, so when you play football.
This is David Ferrell show.
Sorry. Were you going to ask me questions?
I will.
Okay.
Eventually I'm going to slow you down.
All right, well, thank you. I haven't had a Coca-Cola in a month. So we just went to the best pizza place in this whole area.
Okay, legit, dude. That's the best.
For real. I love Troy Pizza, right? And it is, it's fantastic. Chicken Marsala pizza. I know it's a free plug. They're not advertising. Anyway, it's fantastic.
Yeah, but the owner would appreciate it.
Well, and they do a great job. But anyway, they have a fountain machine, and I haven't had a Coke in a month, in case you're wondering. I switched to like the no sugar lemonade, but I only get Minute Maid.
You're like, I'm just going to do one Coke. Then
I got a refill.
Then he gets a refill.
Listen, I'm a middle child, so I can't pass up a free refill. Anyway, I have no idea what I was talking about. I got switched on the Troy Pizza. What was I saying? Oh, the baptism?
Well, yeah, but you missed it by an inch.
Yeah, but then we moved on to something else. And I started talking about it's the ADD. I have no idea what I was moving on to.
Yeah. Well, we're going to move on first.
No, I can't remember. Still can't remember. All right, what are we moving on to?
All right, so I was going to ask you.
Sorry.
By the way, David has been on, you've been on actually multiple programs, shows.
I have, so I actually, it's interesting, this setup we have here. I was trained as a radio announcer.
Right.
So in
the beginning, that's what you went to school
So we're talking about in the mid-'80s. There was there was a few broadcasting programs in North Carolina. There was a 1-year program in Sanford at a community college. Then I went to LCC, which was called Last Chance College, in Kinston, North Carolina. They had a 2-year associate program, so you could get a 2-year degree and then transfer if you wanted to. If I would have finished, that would have been nice. But anyway, so they trained you to be an announcer. Now, growing up in North Carolina, you have to understand, we don't talk like this. We grew up in North Carolina. So my entire class.
How'd you say growed up?
Yeah, you grew up in North Carolina like that. Yeah, talk about that. Everybody talk real fast like that. Anyway, so first day of school, we're going to be future broadcasters, but everybody's like, here, I'm here. Uh-huh. And but then when you complete the training, everybody sounds like this. Hey, how are you? So anyway, but the broadcasting school is where you learned how to be a broadcaster. Now, they had a live remote, and they put me at the board. Well, you've known me for a very long time. Yeah. I am severely technically challenged, as you can see. So.
And many other ways,
like even the buttons. Like, I know that red means it's off and green means it's on.
Yes.
But if any other color pops up, I'm severely confused. Like, oh, wait a second, is that caution?
Right.
What is this? So they put me at the board, which is this, and it's confusing because I'm trying to learn how to turn the microphone off and on. So I don't know how to do that. So the mic just stayed on. So you would hear them say, this is LCC students out at the Lenoir County Fair. And how are things at the studio, David? My mic's on. I'm like, oh, everything's great here. How's everything out at the fair? Well, the fair's great. We're going to go to a commercial, and we'll be back in a couple minutes to talk more about it. Well, my microphone's still open, and I'm like, where's the commercial at? And I'm like reaching for things. I put that in, and the commercial starts playing, but I'm still talking. Oh, I hear the commercial. Well, now they hear me too. They're talking to me. Hey, we can still hear you. I can hear you too, with the commercial playing in the background. Just like a 3-ring circus of craziness. So speaking of three-ring circus, so my first broadcasting job was at a neighboring town 30 minutes away. So back in the day, there was one circus. There was only one circus.
Yeah, Barnum, Bailey.
Ringling Brothers.
Yeah, Ringling.
And Barnum Bailey Circus.
Yeah.
It was the gold standard for circuses. Well, all these other circuses pop up. You know, we want to be Ringling Brothers too. So there was one called the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus. And so I was 19 at the time, and the station managers pulling us aside. They're like, well, there's this circus in town. Would anybody like to be the honorary ringmaster? Well, yeah, are you kidding me? Ringmaster?
It is the opportunity of a lifetime.
I mean, come on, I'm 19.
Yeah.
I mean, when will this ever? In fact, it's never happened since.
Right.
So anyway, I still have a plaque that has my name on it typed, and it says, we would like to thank the radio station, David Ferrell, honorary ringmaster. I still have, it's in like this weird pink frame and then blue lettering, and the whistle is still hanging off the side of it. So it's a big deal. What they don't tell you is there's a lot to know about being a ringmaster. Okay, so first of all, this is a makeshift setup tent. It's like a few hours, this tent's up, right? It's been constructed immediately. And so the guy has on like the long, flowy red coat.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Top
like,
hat.
hi, David, I'm such and such, and you're an honorary ringmaster. I was like, all right, so, what do I do? First of all, I'm nervous. So when I get nervous, I go to the bathroom. So I'm like, look, before we get started,
I'll be back.
I'm nervous and my body's churning. So, give me somewhere. We don't have any restrooms, So I'm like, great. So there's no bathroom. That's not a good start. He's basically, the woods were out from the tent, You got to remember this is the 80s too. So, it's not.
And in the South.
And it's not even a first-rate circus. The circus is what it is.
It's a circus.
Exactly. Cheap live entertainment.
Right.
So he's like, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to come in from the back of the round tent. You're going to walk to the center. We're going to put a spotlight on you. All you say is, let the circus begin, blow the whistle, go out where you came from, and get on the elephant, ride the elephant into the circus. I'm like,
that's easy.
Well, give me something hard to do.
Yeah, that's
So anyway, it's filling. The tent's filling up with tens of people, and so I'm nervous. I'm 19 years old. This is like a big deal. So he gets on the house mic.
Just a reminder, you volunteered for this.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I don't even get, and I was making $3.75 an hour. So even if I got paid, really,
yeah,
what's that going to buy? A couple Snicker bars. So anyway, the guy he goes out and he's like, "Hey, we'd like to welcome everybody to Clyde Beatty Cole Circus." Splattering of applause, And we have a honorary ringmaster day from WEQR 96 FM, David Ferrell. Of course, less clapping because nobody knows who I am. I walk out there and did exactly what he said. Let the circus begin. Blow this whistle, completely go deaf. Like I just blew it so loud I can't hear. Spotlight hits me in the face. Now I can't see. I'm literally trying to figure out where I'm at. When a spotlight hits you in the face, all you see is that light and nothing else.
The halo, yeah, you're done.
So I remembered I went from this direction. So I go, because he said, hurry up and get on the elephant. I go running back, smack right into the side of the tent, and now I'm feeling my way around to try to find the hole that I came through. I finally find it. I go back, and this guy's like, get on the elephant. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he grabs my foot, flips me up, and I hit the back of this elephant in my best pair of jeans from the day that fit just right. And I kerplunk on the back of this elephant and just super rack myself. And I'm like, oh, but there was no time to recover because he's smacking this elephant and the elephant starts running and I'm moving like this, which is not good.
Yeah, because you've already racked yourself.
So there's no saddle. on an elephant. So you're just hanging on to elephant fat, trying to, and it's not easy. You know, it's like dough that's moving. I'm holding it and moving like this. What I couldn't see was the tubing around the top of the tent was wire, like those hollow poles. Well, you're supposed to duck. Because it's the largest elephant. I'm hitting probably, I don't know, I'd say at least 6 miles an hour, which is fast on an elephant when you're bouncing like this. My forehead just pops like this. I fall back and I'm holding on to fat and coming in like this. And I think they thought it was part of the show. Like, wow, he's trying to ride like an old Western,
Yeah, the bucking bronco or something. Yeah.
But that's not what happened. You know, I'm literally holding on for my life as I'm completely feeling that sick feeling in my stomach from my landing.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to fall off of this elephant. He had to go make a whole round around while tens of people are clapping. And I can't even see them because I'm like glassy eyed. I still got the flare from my eyes. I can't hear. I'm holding on. That's when you needed videotaped so you could see this. But anyway, I made the circle. They helped me back off, and they hand me a plaque and the whistle.
And said, go home.
And then I got back in my unair-conditioned 1979 Pontiac Sunbird and then went home, which was 30 minutes away, and nobody gave me gas money. So anyway,
and
that
they only
was
paid you for 1 hour.
Yeah.
$3.75.
Well, they didn't even pay me that. I just volunteered to do it. But that was sort of the first beginning of broadcasting school, and that was my part-time job then. But learning...
And that's what made you fall in love with... I'm kidding.
Well, no. So so you don't think about how bad that was. You're just determined to be a broadcaster on some level.
Right.
So, but yeah, learning the equipment and trying to remember, turn the mic off before you turn the commercial on. When they're talking to you, pull that pot down. You know, you can put the board in audition, listen. I didn't know any of that stuff. So when they were at the state fair, I'll go back to my story. They're at the fair. I'm playing commercials. They're talking to me. I'm talking to them live. What do I do? What do I do? And this is what people are hearing on the radio. They're hearing me say, what do I do, what I do? And they're like, turn the knob. And I'm like, which knob? I don't know what you're talking about, while the commercial's playing. So when I finally, and then
fans call in and say, the knob on the left.
Oh, and the phone's lighting up because it's our teacher trying to get me on. But anyway, so we still had records, the 45s and 2 turntables. So the next record up was a song by Kansas called Everybody's My Friend. And it was hello, hello. It was a good song, but the name of the song was Everybody's My Friend. So this is how I knew I was going to be a good radio announcer. I put it on the turntable where everybody can hear it. They hear the scratching needle and the record start up. And I was like, this is WKNS K91. I'm David Ferrell and nobody's my friend. And then I just start playing the song because I thought I'd messed up so bad, they were going to kick me out of class.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was, back when we first are younger, we have dreams and aspirations of being whatever.
Right.
So at the time, I wanted to be a radio announcer. So,
So did you ever become a radio announcer?
Yeah. So
I know you announced for Bull Durham.
Yeah. Well, there was there was a minor
volunteer.
Well, no. So they paid me. This was actually in the town I was going to college. There was an A-League baseball team, and just the A-League's the lowest.
Right.
There's A-League, AA, AAA, then Major League.
Right.
But your A-League is
I thought the Bull Durhams were...
So the Durham Bulls...
Or Durham Bulls.
They used to be. That's all right. There was a movie.
Yes.
There you go. You're confusing me with Kevin Costner.
Right.
So anyway, so that was an A-League team. Now they're AAA because it's a big deal. But anyway.
But at the time they were A.
Yeah, so my instructor had been a radio announcer, years ago. And, he was like, hey, so the the local baseball team needs a public address announcer. Would you like to do that? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I think it pays $10, but you get free food. And I'm like, oh, okay. $10 free food? Are you kidding me? So anyway, what you would do is, you would basically announce, now, batting, 4, the echo, because no one's at the game. But anyway, so
the tens of people.
Yeah, and I had the charge on a cassette with a little cassette recorder and the microphone down toward so you would announce, now batting for the, Kinston Indians, which they're not the Indians anymore because that's offensive. They're now the Guardians. At the time, they were the Indians, and then they would be
say, Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland. It was Cleveland's A-League affiliate.
Right.
But anyway, you would announce the name, and then you would turn the mic down to the cassette recorder, hit play, and hear, like that, charge. And the charge was on there, too, because sometimes the people watching the game never said it. Right. So, like they didn't know. They were even like, we know that's not us.
Yeah, and we know tons of people can't sound like that.
True. So I would just announce, now batting for such and such, number 33, whoever. So in between innings, people would buy a game program, and I would say, turn to page 22, and if your lucky number is 60210, you win a $25 gift certificate from whoever. Or you got a Pepsi and a hot dog or whatever. So anyway, the scoreboard operator there was a guy named Delmont Miller. He's, I think, the only scoreboard operator in the history of scoreboard operators to have his own Wikipedia page. He was a local favorite, and he worked there for the free food. I know because you talk about 8, 9 hot dogs, 6, 7 Pepsis, But when the ball was hit into the air, he would go ahead and put an out on the board before they called it. And people would get mad, and they're like, Delmont, why did you put an out? He hadn't called it yet. And he's like, well, when the man hit the ball into the air and the other man put his glove up, he's going to catch it. So this was one of the other characters at the game. But yeah, $10 and free food, and that was it. And probably 1 out of 100 players went major league, and the other 99 went and got jobs wherever,
went home,
or got hurt. And that's sort of like with probably broadcasting or comedy too. Of the 100 people that start, I mean, we're really only talking about 1 or 2 that either by talent or by luck or by just being at the right place at the right time sort of take off.
Right.
So that's kind of how that works. But yeah, I did radio for a few years. I think I was just probably too young to know what I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
Because radio I wanted to be creative, but wasn't really sure how to do it. It's interesting now with podcasts, you can be as creative as you want.
Oh, dude, it's a whole new world.
Right.
Now.
But back 30, 35 years ago, it was, you're going to do it this way. People didn't have this equipment in their house, and that's all they did. So I started doing stand-up because, I was pretty creative and did impressions, and they're like, hey, you could do this. I was like, well, what do I got to do? Just talk in front of people, which was terrifying. Coming out of a radio, I had to look at people and talk. I didn't like it.
Well, and I don't know that people realize just how big of a deal getting up in front of people is. Man. I mean, for some, that's very difficult. I've been in ministry 30 years. I've been preaching here in New York 20. And I still go to the bathroom 3 times before I get up and preach because
it's
because you know what's coming. You gotta
you realize what's coming. I think
and also the responsibility of expectation.
Exactly, the responsibility. Also, I think some people want a challenge, but they don't. They feel like if they do what's normal or average, that they're kind of cheating themselves out of the possibility of what could happen. I mean, the first few years I did comedy, it was really difficult. Not being funny, because I could just do impressions or whatever. Right. but it was people watching you and seeing facial changes. You know, if something wasn't funny, you know.
That's real pressure, though.
But it is, and there's just something about it. I think you and I were kind of mentioning about regrets in life. I sometimes wish I would have chose a different profession, because I think a different profession would have been easier, but would have been more worthwhile. You know, probably not. But yeah, transitioning from radio announcer into comedy was not easy, especially when you're starting and you're in a restaurant in the corner in the dark by a plant and people are eating dinner and they're like, okay, start. And I'm like, well, where's the microphone? You don't need one. Or go table to table.
And a microphone. I'm thinking of food. So a microphone is part of the it's actually part of the prop that you hold, right? I mean, it kind of gets you in the groove.
Well, I don't know. I when I think back to those first shows, I think it's the reason why people stop being comedians. There was a restaurant, and I don't know why I think the owner saw me doing impressions one night, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm Barney the dinosaur," you know, or whoever. And he, in his mind, he thought, well, that's entertaining. You know, maybe it was on stage, but he wanted me to come into his restaurant and go table to table.
No, he didn't.
While people were while people were eating dinner and entertaining their children. So so imagine this. You're in a restaurant and you're eating dinner. You're with your wife, you're with your kids. It's nice, you know, and you're enjoying it. And this guy, not a waiter, not the bus boy,
not a clown,
just some guy shows up standing in front of you, and he's like, well, I'm a comedian. And of course, like most tables, oh, okay, keep eating. And then you're still standing there. They look up and you're still there. And you don't even acknowledge the parents. You just look at the two kids and start going, I'm Barney the dinosaur. They're probably like, who's this psychopath that just showed up at our table and is not even looking at us, just doing Kermit I'm Kermit the Frog. Not even looking at the parents, looking at the kids to get their reaction, which is the same as the parents.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? And then I wouldn't even say.
Well, first off, it's so unexpected, they don't even know what to do.
Well, yeah, the unexpected part is probably the worst, because what they don't realize is I'm making a whopping $15 an hour to walk from table to table to entertain people that don't want entertainment.
They're like, I came to a restaurant, not a theater.
So once
how long did that job last?
Oh, I did that one weekend and I stopped it. You know, he was like, well, we'll see you next weekend. I was like, I'm on the road. I can't come back. Just hand me my $60 or whatever it is. But, you know, it's interesting because years later I had success with comedy, and you would think with success would come these better shows. But all that happens is you get paid a lot more money to do the exact same thing. Right. So my agent calls me and he's like, there's this Christian Indian wedding. And first of all, in my mind, I'm like, well, first of all, wait a second. So it's a what? Well, her family is Indian or Hindu, and the other family is Christian or Baptist or whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, you know, that marriage ain't going to last, but whatever. If they're in love, what do you do?
Go with it.
So they tell me where it's at, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll show up early because I want to make sure they know I'm there.
Right.
So I show up, and they're taking pictures from the main stage, and I'm looking around the room, and I was like, I don't see a stage for me or a microphone. So I go to the bride's father, and I'm like, hi, I'm David Ferrell, the comedian. Congratulations. You know, I didn't say congratulations on the Indian Christian wedding. I just said congratulations because I figured he probably had the same concerns I did. But anyway, so
was he the Indian or
he was the Indian guy. And so I said, where do you want me to do my comedy? And he was like, oh, hold on, come here, I will show you. And so he takes me to the buffet line, and in between the salad and the main course is a microphone. And he goes, you take the microphone here and tell the jokes as people walk by. And I'm like, well, is there a stage or something? He goes, no, you don't need a stage. You just stand here and, tell jokes. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I waited, and the Christian guy showed up. I'm like, hey, I'm David Ferrell, the comedian. He goes, oh, yeah, we're really excited about you being here. I said, where's the stage at? So where am I supposed to stand? Are people going to just sit on the floor in front of me? I don't see chairs. He goes, oh, I think my new wife's father set that up. I said, yeah. Well, do you know what he wants me to do? And he goes, no, what? I said, there's a microphone between the salad and the main course. And he just says, okay. So that's where he wants me to stand and tell jokes to people. Yeah. And he goes, well, is that not a good setup for you?
This marriage is going to make it.
And dude. I said, listen, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm just letting you know that might not be the best setup. He goes, well, I think that's fine. I said, well, if that's what he wants and that's what you want, that's what we'll do. People start funneling in. We have two very different cultures arriving.
Sure.
We have, people in their native dress from an Indian nation, and then also people in suits and ties and stuff. I'm like, whatever, they're all showing up. So her dad's like, we have prepared a very great meal for you. And so just start with the buffet and then come through the line. And so everyone lines up. They're all grabbing a salad to the best of their ability, because I'm standing right beside the tongs. A microphone here, tongs here, grabbing lettuce and stuff. And I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Just looking at me. I'm getting my dinner. What do you think, how am I doing? And I was like, I just launched into my show. I was like, the Ford Motor Company has come up with a dinosaur collection of cars. You want a big luxury car? They have a Brontosaurus. You want the aerodynamic... I said, you want the aerodynamic sports car? They have the Stegosaurus. I said, but they're having problems with the Tyrannosaurus. You know why? Blank stare. The Tyrannosaurus Rex. They go right around me, right to the main course.
They don't care.
Next person shows up. Hey, how are you doing? I'm Casey Kasem. They're just looking at me the whole time. So I do this for as long. Every single person's looking at me the same way.
Right, deer in the headlight look.
They literally think I'm a family member from that Christian side, and I have no purpose. And they're just like, maybe let's give him something to do so he feels like he's part of this. And none of them even acknowledge me. They're just looking at me and walking around me. And even on the back end, when they go around me, I'm still trying, to catch them before they get their vegetables on their plate. So I stayed there, I don't know how many hours. It was ridiculous.
No
and
way.
of course, I'm waiting to be paid now. Like I'm done doing this. Like I'm already.
I would have been done before I started.
Well, I was, but I had to pay my bills. So I'm like, all right, I'm done. I just want my check. So they all break into other rooms. I'm like, wait a second, who's paying me now? So I can't find her dad. I find the groom. He's changing into their native attire now. So he went from a suit and tie to some sort of flowing garment. And I stopped him. I said, hey, I don't mean to be rude. Congratulations, by the way. But
I want my money.
I know you're about to get married again in this room. I haven't gotten paid. And he's like, oh, I think my wife's father's supposed to pay you. I said, yes, what I thought too. Do you know if he has a check or something for me? He's like, oh, hold on, I'll go check. Hour later, nobody's coming out. One of his friends came out. I said, listen, the groom was supposed to, he's just getting married. I'm like, I think he was checking to see if I got a check to be paid, And he's like, well, what are you talking about? I said, well, no one seems to know who's paying me, and I'm done, and I got to go. It's like midnight. And, and they're like, I don't know. So I had to call this guy back for like a month, and say, hey, congratulations. But I didn't get paid. And he's like, oh, no one paid you? I was like, no, you said you would pay. And then he finally sent the money. But it's one of those things where you're like, not only did I do this, and I'm completely empty when I leave, and you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, like, I literally am like, why am I doing this?
Right.
This was terrible.
Right.
But then I'm like, well, I made enough money where if I worked at a regular job, it would have taken me. I'm trying to justify
Right.
why I want this abuse.
Right.
You know? And he's like, I can mail it to you. It's like, well, I'll drive to your city and pick it up if that's easier, because I don't trust he's going to get it to me. But I think like 4 or 5 weeks later,
That's crazy.
I had gotten paid. But you know, when you're living week to week, month to month, and you know, mostly comedy it's just weekend stuff usually.
Right.
You know, it's not like you're doing 7 nights of comedy. It's like you've done 2 or 3 and now you need to get paid. And this guy's just like, oh, you know, you finally get your money, but it's just like, why am I doing this? And even today, after 30 plus years of doing this, I'm like, why am I doing this? So in the early years of YouTube, I was very fortunate where a lot of my stuff got posted. And so it's sort of like the internet now is a massive interstate freeway.
Right.
But when it first started, it was a 2-lane dirt road. Well, I just happened to be on that 2-lane dirt road. So when people were looking for clean comedy, I would pop up. The downside of that is people didn't realize that they really need to think about, just because you do clean comedy, is this the right person
Right.
for this event? So my agent called.
Because you didn't seem to fit well between the salad and the main course.
Well, yeah, I'm not a buffet
You're
comedian.
not a buffet guy.
You know, now maybe if it was just one religious group getting married, it would have worked out better. But anyway, we're combining cultures and the whole thing.
Well, not only that, but think, man, here they want you to be funny to one person at a time.
Yeah, which is extremely unrealistic.
Exactly.
You know,
because you don't even have time to set anything up or to get them to like you.
Well, plus the buffet was on 2 sides, so I'm missing half the audience because they're going around me.
Right.
Plus, when they saw what I was doing, more people got in the other line, so they didn't have to listen to me. So,
You were defeated before you started.
they already, you know, I'm not a family member.
Right.
And this, you know, they're like, well, let's just throw money away. How can we do that? Well, let's have a guy stand at the freaking salad bar. So anyway, in the early years of YouTube, you know, people would only, they only went by what they saw,
right,
unless they knew someone. So my agent's like, okay, so there's this child grief camp. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, I don't know. But they want a clean comedian. And so, do you want to do it? I was like, well, what does it pay? I was like, yeah, I want to do it, you know, because it paid really well. And of course, he's like, well, do you have material for, you know, I'm like, of course I do. I don't even know what that means. What kind of material do I have for child grief? All I've had is a young girl with deaf parents pooting my face. That's all I got, you know? So I was like, well, I don't know. So anyway, I was like, yeah, I can do it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, all I got to do is cartoon voices. These kids get it. You know, I should have known from the restaurant, kids don't like cartoon voices, because there was no reaction when I did it at the restaurant. I was like, well, maybe it was just, you know, tough kids. They don't know how to laugh. I had the wrong kid group.
Yeah. Forget the fact that I'm invading their dinner.
Yeah. So anyway, I show up at this nice lake sort of resort. These children have had terrible things occur. They've either lost a parent or both parents.
Wow.
In a short amount of time, and this is a camp to help them to come to grips with a great loss. So somebody thought it was a good idea to have a comedian show up for these kids. Now, in hindsight, nowadays, you'd be more selective. You would Google grief camp speaker great for kids. You wouldn't just look online and go, hey, that guy juggling, that's perfect for kids struggling with loss.
Send them up.
So, you know, but back then it was just, you see a few people, you're like, oh, that guy's kind of funny. He looks happy. Maybe he can somehow move that into those kids' direction. So anyway, I show up at the time where these kids are pushing these small boats with candles out into the lake to say goodbye to the loss of a parent. I don't know why they chose to do that, but anyway, they're all crying and sending these boats out into the water. So when
do they send you in?
Oh, hold on. So I'm watching from behind the shoreline, and they're passing these boats out into the water. A beautiful scene of candle-lit boats, but sort of drowned out by the crying and everything. And so I was like, well, this isn't going to be an easy gig, right? Because their kids are upset. So they're like, okay, kids, let's go back. And they go in the building, and the person there was like, we're so glad you're here. These kids are having a really hard time. I was like, yeah, I can hear, like they're crying. And she was like, well, they'll really enjoy your program. They really need a laugh. And I'm like, well, they probably really need a parent, but since that's not available, that might have been a little harsh. I'm just saying. So I come back into the building, and there's like, these kids, they've had a really hard day. They need a laugh. And I was like, well, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I can give them this after what they've just experienced. All right, so we come back in, and there's I'm feeling a lot of pressure because I'm thinking, I don't even know what I can do so that these kids can help recover. They've lost a parent. This is a huge burden that's been placed on me. So when I go out, they're like, all right, guys, we have a comedian for you, David Ferrell, and you guys ready to laugh? Nothing.
Because they're not. They're
not
grieving.
Laughing. They don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they're still grieving. Golly.
So anyway, he hands me the mic. I'm like, hey, and I'm trying to be upbeat. Hey, how you doing? And I look out, and I'm not kidding you. They're clutching stuffed animals with tear-stained faces looking up at me. And I'm thinking, this is going to be really hard. Like, how am I going to transition from what I see to them laughing? You guys like, Elmo? I'm Elmo. And the couple little, launch into another voice, do another thing. And fortunately, by the end, they had sort of gone past that momentary grief into some form of happiness or laughter. But the point for me was, in my mind, I'm like, I just want to finish this without it being worse than it was before. And so when I finished, and I was paid immediately, and they're like, thank you for coming, that really helped. And then I think when you do those shows, that's when you have grown as a comedian or performer or a specialist in doing clean comedy, because it's almost like being thrown onto the battlefield and they tell you to run.
Right.
And then they're loaded behind you going, we're going to give you a head start, but, good luck.
Well, because now it's not just about getting up and being funny. Now it's about actually doing a benefit for the crowd that you are trying to make laugh. Like, you really have to work to bring them along. Which is incredibly difficult sometimes.
Right. And the longer I've been doing comedy, when I first started doing it, and I wanted to work clean because I was a Christian, and I was like, God's given me a gift and I want to use it right. But the longer I do it, I never realized the healing benefits of laughter, of making people laugh, of getting them to forget maybe what's going on in life for a little while.
Right.
Because, as well as life is hard and it's getting harder. And so, if you can be a sense of relief to somebody, even just one time. I remember a few years ago going through a difficult time, and it was actually the comedy place where I went to see another comedian, which, as a comedian, I don't really want to see a lot of other comedians just because we're all doing the same thing.
Right.
But my friends were like, hey, I've seen this guy on TV. Seems pretty funny. Let's go see him. Well, it just so happened that the comedy place was right outside of one of the last places I ever spent time with my dad. It was in downtown Greenville, and there was a trolley that ran free shuttles around the town to let you see the town. Well, about 2 months before he passed away, he came down to visit, and we all got on the trolley and rode around downtown. Well, I've looked at pictures for that. He passed in 2013. I saw this comedian 5 years later, and I still remember pictures of my dad,
Right.
holding on, he was frail, but wanted to visit and come see us. We rode that trolley car, and now I'm sitting right at the building where we picked it up. We went and saw the comedian, and he was fantastic, did a great job, very interactive, did a clean show, and stayed after and actually took pictures with us. And he was the way I would want to be a comedian for other people. But what it did was when I left, I had a new memory of that spot.
Right.
So it wasn't just, this is where I got to spend really one of the last good times with my dad. It's also a place where I got to laugh, watching somebody else do what I do.
That's like a sweet gift from God right there.
And it really was. And it was surprising, too, because, this was at just a regular comedy club. You don't ever know what you're going to hear there. But the guy did his craft of comedy so well. And not only that, he stayed afterward. He talked to everybody, took pictures, and he was a fairly big name person at the time. And but it gave some healing to me. So when I do comedy, I try to think of it in the same terms, that maybe I can give some healing to someone else. Just it works better from stage and not from a buffet line somewhere.
Well, that's the thing. When we're talking about comedians, it's not about just being funny. It's about helping people get through a moment or a day or a week, because you don't know how you affected them to where they will look back at what was going on or what you did for them. And man, then you've gained a new friend, if you will, because they're like, yeah, I like this guy. I'll listen to him.
Well, I feel like that
because there was that benefit.
Life is stressful on so many levels for almost everyone.
Right. Especially nowadays, man, with everything seeming to be going downhill.
I feel like people are seeking relief. Obviously, when you have a hard day at work, you go to your phone, check something out. But I feel like even more now, people are in search of, ways to, I don't want to say escape.
Right. But it's true. They again, that's what they do with drugs. That's what they do with alcohol. But if you can do that through laughter, it's way more beneficial, and they're strengthened and they're encouraged.
Right.
Like there's no negative with that. And so if you give them a way out at that moment,
right,
dude, that's worth $1 million.
Yeah, it'd be nice to make that, right? Be nice for somebody to say, hey, welcome to adult grief camp.
Right. Yeah, because I don't mean to make this a dark podcast, and we won't keep it there long, but the reality is, dude, you've had your share of grief.
Yeah, I don't think anyone hits the age we're at. I'm a couple years older than you, but we're our 50s. Life has thrown enough at anyone our age, where it's easy to be cynical, it's easy to be negative, it's easy to be just ready to give up, and continue to move forward with a positive outlook, realizing that God has got more to do in this world and more to do through us, is hard to focus on.
Right. And let's be honest, dude, when you're in the pit, it's hard to remember.
It is. And it's,
it's hard to remember God's got a perfect plan for you. Right.
Yeah, when things are as bad as they can be, it's very easy to lose sight of where things can be.
Right.
A friend of mine had told me, one time, he's like, today might be terrible, but the sun's going to come back up tomorrow. And guess what? Tomorrow might be terrible too. But at some point, the situation is going to change. You just have to wait. That patience in waiting through all that pain is what grows us and gives us wrinkles and gray hair and everything else. But it's worth waiting for. And like I said, I've worked with people who are ready to give up. They don't see a reason to go forward. But the reality is, God created us. We have purpose in life. Right. I tell people, you may feel like no one loves you, but I guarantee you know that God loves you. Someone here on earth is of great value.
Well, I tell people all the time, you are leading somebody, because we always have somebody watching us. And would we be as passionate about, even if it's just one person watching us that we're leading, to lead them right? Or are we, do we count that as a negative too, because now we want more? Like, so because some people can't see the positive because of the grief.
Right.
And the reality is, dude, we can make a massive difference if we just go, hey, we'll make a difference one person at a time.
Right.
And I think that's what comedy does. Man, when you come in, you might make the whole room laugh, but you may have changed one person's life.
It is. And comedy and comedians, it's a profession that I would never suggest anybody going into, just because of the travel, the amount of hours that you spend by yourself, on either on a plane or in a rental car or at a hotel. It's a sacrifice, right, for that person and the people around them. But like I said, at this point in my life, I can look back and say, well, maybe I wish I would have done something else. But I would hope I've touched a lot of people in a very positive way and been an encouragement to people close to me and people that have met me. And there's no great financial reward for most entertainers, right, when they start hitting their late 50s. I mean, it would have been an easier road to do something else, but probably far less rewarding.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But I, of course, as a pastor, I kind of feel the same way you do. Like, I hope I made a difference in someone's life. I hope, you know what I'm saying? Like, right, because you want, the reality is everything that we do only makes a difference if we've made a difference in someone else's life. And, just being busy doing isn't what matters. It's being busy doing what makes the difference for someone. Yep. And I think comedy does that. And the truth is, dude, like for you, you got to be funny even when there's nothing to laugh at for yourself.
True. Yeah. I mean, those
dark days again and again. I don't mean
sure,
I don't mean to park there, but I as for my audience, I want people to see that, dude, you're incredibly funny. We've known each other for 30 years now, and of course, I love your company, and there are just certain things that you say that I will laugh so hard I'm crying, but for comedians, dude, and I don't care what comedian, I don't care what entertainer, there are those times where it's just not easy. But if you didn't stick it out, dude, you've had so many things in your life that most people would only dream about, and yet you got to experience because of what your job has taken you to.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think when I tell, for instance, when I tell you stories of what I've done or where I've been, there's a certain amount of pain that comes from telling these stories. They are, I would hope, humorous, and they should be funny, but they're very painful at the same time. I don't know how many people go to work not knowing what that day is going to be like and are willing to risk just jumping in, not knowing where it's going, because not every comedy show goes well or ends well, and some aren't paid well, or some aren't paid at all. Some people still owe me money. But anyway, it's just, I don't know. I think there's something about having that. It's sort of like an Evel Knievel, mentality. Right. I'm going to hit this jump, even though there's a good chance I'm going to miss my ramp and end up, in bad shape. But there's just something about all those people watching and wanting something to cheer about, and wanting something to get excited about. because life can be just pretty mundane and boring.
Right.
So there, we need things to look forward to.
So out of curiosity, have you ever done a show that you went in, didn't want to be there, didn't really want to do it, but obviously you're a professional, and so you're going to go in and you're going to do what you have to do to get people to laugh, and then you'll go home and you'll deal with yourself later. But have you ever had a show going into it like that, and then you come out where that show has actually helped you, and the laughing, the comedy has helped you, like that whole ordeal, where you walk away having been healed a little bit?
Well, I think the later years I've been doing comedy, my comedy show is not even really stand up. I do so much with the audience. I like what they say, and what they, some of the little quick questions I ask turn into their own stories of just unusual things. Everyone's laughing at them, and I'm still getting paid for it. So it's not a bad deal. Hey, tell me about your dog for 30 minutes while I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think I enjoy meeting people funnier than me who never even did comedy. Right. And there's some people that I'll sit down with that have me rolling, like, why aren't you doing comedy? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, you realize you're making somebody laugh that's been hearing everything for 30 plus years. Some people, that's just not what they want to do.
Right.
Plus they don't, just like last night, you pick me up at the airport at 1:30 in the morning. Some people don't want to sit on a runway for an hour for no reason, while they watch the guy load one bag with one hand and talk on his phone with the other. It's like, we could have left 30 minutes ago if you get off your phone. I'm watching you load baggage with one hand. But anyway, that's just part of, I was up yesterday, got up at 4 o'clock, got here. I'd been up, 22 hours.
Right.
Who wants to do that? Not many people, but that's part of what's required to be successful in this type of business.
Right.
So, and that's not even after the first 5 years. That's at like year 34. So yeah, it's not easy.
Right.
But what else would I have done? Would have loved to have been a professional baseball player, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, those days are over.
Yeah.
And well, I'd say you had your big toe cut off, but you can still run, so.
Yeah, cricket.
Yeah.
And I can't wear flip-flops.
Yeah, I'll wear flip-flops. Oh, that's funny. All right, so I've known you now 30 years. You've been in comedy for 34 years. And where are you seeing yourself go now? Like, give me a wrap up of where you see yourself going. And because I'm just curious, like you said, after a while, are you still passionate about comedy, or are you just passionate about people, or, because you got a newfound thing where you understand that your comedy is healing now. Right.
I think anyone, I find, so I write constantly, but as I write more, I'm writing more music. Because I think I've been looking for a different way to express emotions that I have that aren't always happy and also, comedic.
Right.
I think creative people, sort of like, let's say that you're an artist and you paint. I think at some point you might be like, I'm kind of not tired of painting, but I enjoy painting, but I want to work with clay. So I think as a writer, because I write a lot of comedy, I find that I also enjoy music. I've been writing a lot more music. Now, does that mean I'm going to become a musician or a singer? I don't know. But I know right now it's more natural for me to write lyrics and songs and play around with music than in my early years. I always enjoyed music, but now I find it's something I'm getting kind of an itching to do more of.
Oh, nice.
And I can sing. I can't play an instrument, but whatever. But most musicians can't either, or most singers can't. But anyway, it may be something that I explore soon, just to keep my creative ability strong. Right. But it could also lead to something else.
Sure.
And sometimes I feel like comedy is something that you write from your head.
Right.
Music is something you write more from your soul. You think about it, but it's more heartfelt. It's something within you that, in my opinion, right now seems to have more meaning to me. And so who knows? I may, start doing more musical things or working with music and that kind of thing. But we'll see. But I still enjoy doing comedy. I love making people laugh.
Yeah.
I like when people show up and they're like, "Hey, you." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the one. I'm the guy that does it."
Yeah, because there's a massive expectation from you too.
Well,
when you show up for comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're a new comedian, there is no expectation because we're giving you $50 in a salad, and then later on, you're making the big bucks. It's like, hey, we're giving you $75 and a steak. But no, it's there definitely should be an expectation level that's higher and a performance level that's higher for events that require that.
Right.
And that is more pressure, but the longer that you do it, the better you're at it, hopefully. And hopefully there's more of an enjoyment and fulfillment of going from the nothing, the going table to table, telling people that don't want to hear comedy impressions, to later on where people are actually waiting for you.
Right.
Now, saying that, last week I did a show. They paid me very well, and they still mispronounced my name. And they got flyers up all around the building. They got posters, and they're like, "So you're David Fuller?" Oh, yeah, why not? Yeah, I'm David Fuller.
Roll with it.
So here's a comedian. He's been nominated 3 times as Inspirational Comedy Act of the Year, and he's done over 3,000 shows, been all over the world. David Fuller. Thanks.
Well, you've been on. So what?
Thank you.
Give me some of your like we nominated 3 times.
Yep.
Give me your, because dude, you actually have a nice.
Well, I was on XM Satellite, Laugh USA, I think consistently for about 10 years. And so I did that. Inspirational Country Music Awards, I was nominated 3 times between 2006, 2010. And then I've showed up on different things. I was like the #1 booked comedian in this city or this state or whatever. But all of that has its time too. Sure. I kind of feel like I'm a band that's had 3 hits. So like I'm not I'm not the Eagles, or I'm not Third Day or somebody that's had 20 hits. But I'm not the one-hit wonder band like Men Without Hats, Safety Dance. You can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. But I've had like 3 hits. So I'm like, wait a second, maybe, and then no, just like a Howard Jones. I'd like to get to know you well. He actually had 4 great hits, but anyway, he was still sort of like for 3 or 4 years, people knew who he was, and then it's like, oh, okay, whatever. Yeah. What does he do now? Oh, he still plays music after 30 years? That's still how he makes his living? Oh, okay. But you probably wouldn't pay a ticket to go see 3 songs, but maybe if they had 5 or 6.
Right.
So, I don't know. I guess I need another breakout.
I think you'll get it, man.
So, we'll see. Like I said.
So real quick, I was going to start this off in the beginning, but you jumped out there and I just let you go.
Yeah, it was that whole stable thing. It's because I saw your logo and I'm like, Unbridled. Okay. And then that kicked in the whole horse
that
thing.
Kicked into Coca-Cola.
Now, years ago, I did bet the trifecta at a small horse track in West Virginia where you bet like 3 horses. Right. I got the first one right, second one right, and then the third horse came in 4th. Oh, that was on a $2 bet. I was just wanted to do something with $2. So
what did it pay out?
I was like $8 grand or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I didn't win, so who cares?
I thought you got.
And now it's post time. And they all run around.
Yeah.
And jelly rolls, followed by all those announcers.
Nice. So, how long have you been a Christian?
Wow. So, my brother and I were shipped off to this camp, which we thought was in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't. It was just on the outskirts of Raleigh, but as kids, we thought we were in the middle of nowhere. And so they dropped us off for a week, and we didn't know what was going on. And so anyway, we didn't know what was what. Like, this was a church camp, and we didn't go to church. So it's like, all right, where are we? So the whole week, my brother and I were trying to figure out how to leave, and we didn't know where to go. So he's like, well, let's just run through the woods. I'm like, where? So we didn't go anywhere. And so we stayed the whole week and basically introduced to the Bible and the gospel. We didn't know anything about it. All we knew was the camp had cereal with no sugar in it. And we didn't like it. It was like, where are the Fruit Loops? It's like, no, it's church camp. You're getting cornflakes. But at the end of the night, we had like a camp counselor guy. Right. And then he would basically lay out the gospel and say, hey, if anybody wants to pray, I'll be out here on the steps. And every night he'd sit out on the steps and nobody would go out there. But I'd lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling. Wow. Like, God, wow, I don't want to go to hell. I don't want to, they're telling us, if we don't believe in Jesus, accept him into our heart, it's not going to end well whenever our life's over. And so it really started I thought about it a lot. And so I didn't accept Christ then. I got home and I wrote, my mom had been watching Billy Graham like a year ago. And, Billy Graham laid out the plan of salvation. And, my mom accepted Christ just watching, Billy Graham. Her and my dad had been going to church a little bit, but, they didn't become Christians till their 30s. So I left the camp and I remember going home and it just like really was weighing on me. And I wrote in a crayon on a postcard to my mom. I said, I want to be saved. And she went, we had like a little 4 laws track and she went through it and I accepted Christ. And man, everything changed. I was like, wow. I said, when they say you become a new creature, a new creation, like it happened just like that. I mean, like the window opened and I was like, wow, like, everything was very different. The sin was, of course, before you're a Christian, it's like, what's sin anyway?
Yeah,
it's like
it's
the stuff we do every day, right? But once you become a Christian, it's like, wait a second, that's wrong. You have a clear sense of right and wrong, and you want to do the things that are right. But yeah, it happened at that camp, and that was sort of the, like the first, a lot of people never even heard the gospel. Right. So they don't even know. They're just like, it's not that I don't want it. I don't even know what it is. Right.
Yeah, because you actually do a lot of work at churches. You go to a lot of churches.
I do. I was telling you, I think I've been to every denomination that exists under whatever, and then 50 within that, and some put value on that, and some, they have $50 all-you-can-drink comedy night fundraisers for their churches. I mean, I'm just saying, for some reason, it's still a church, but everybody's highly intoxicated. I don't know.
I don't get that one, man.
Well, like I said, I don't ask too many questions. They want a comedian.
Well, so at that point, you have a job to do. You just go in and do your job and roll out.
I mean, it's no different than, any job. I mean, it's, you're not going to open a restaurant and only serve people that, are on the same page. Or just like the flight last night, the pilot's not like, hey, I'm a Christian, so if you're not, get off the plane. Right. But that would have given us more leg room. And maybe been on time, but. I mean, it is a job, but still an opportunity to minister in some way. I've done a lot of shows and had people stay after and just talk. Right. And they're like, I'm glad I showed up. I'm struggling with this or that. And I try to make myself available to talk to those people because, first of all, just people opening up about what they're dealing with is not easy. Right. And if people shut them down quickly, who are they going to talk to? Right. So, I mean, I try to just be open to the fact that they might need an encouraging word or some advice. Of course, I tell some people, I know it's bad, but you still got to go home. Yeah. You can't stay here and talk to me all night. But anyway, and I don't want to go to Waffle House at 1:30 in the morning when I got a 4 a.m. flight. But, it's like I said, I feel like we live in a great country, but a hurting world.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So let me ask you this, man, real quick. Tell the listeners how they can contact you and how they can.
I don't know. Hey, I don't know. However I don't even know how people find out what I do anymore, because there's a couple agencies that book me, and there's a few more that I think have just added me without my, my knowledge or whatever.
So, well, let me ask you this. Can they email you, David Ferrell?
Yeah, so email thedavidferrell@gmail.com.
The David Ferrell.
Yeah. Or the David Ferrell at gmail.com.
No, we like the.
Yeah, thedavidferrell@gmail.com. You can send me any kind of request, just whatever. I'll look at it. If it's something relevant and valid, I'll definitely respond back. If it's something that's just whatever, I'll look at it and say, haha, I don't know.
Right.
But no, I'm definitely available to be booked to do comedy, motivational speaking. I've started doing some things along the lines of suicide prevention, humor therapy.
Yeah, you've been doing a lot of that lately.
I've done military events all over the place. Appreciate what these guys do and the fact that they're away from their families, and just the fact that we live in a free nation because of sacrifice.
Right.
And any way I can help on those terms, I would love to do that. But yeah, I mean, anybody wants a clean, interactive, fun show, I'll do it. Just let me know.
Amen. Yeah. So the David Ferrell.
David Ferrell at gmail.com. Your chance to win nothing. It's coming up.
Of course, if they pay,
you know what's going to happen? Here's what's going to happen.
So we have a wedding coming up, and we have a spot on the buffet, but it's between the entree and the wedding cake. Would you be willing to set up there?
Yeah, just wait a month to pay me too. That's all good, right?
Dude, how crazy is it that people do? I mean, if you're gonna have a comedian come in, do a comedy show. Don't put them in where people only have 10 seconds.
I don't know. I'm assuming the choices were a clown, a juggler, and a comedian on the buffet, and somehow they just flipped a 3-sided coin and it just spun, and they're like, oh, it's still spinning.
Was that 8 ball?
Yeah, they shake it up. Hey, let's
comedian,
do this.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the most unusual thing I've ever seen, but it says
that is
comedian on the buffet.
That is too funny. Well, brother, I'm thankful for you and our friendship over the years, and I love you, man. And thank you for coming on According to John Unbridled and giving me some of your time.
Man, listen, we go way back. I've been very blessed to have a group of friends that go back decades. And I think that says a lot for both of us. I try to maintain my friendships, my relationships as long as I can, and it's easy to do with good people who are just
the true friends.
It is good and bad times, and just make it through. And like I said, I don't ever expect everybody to agree with everything I think, say, or do, but I do know what real good friends are, and they are there for you in difficult times, good times, and they got your back. And you've always been that to me, and appreciate you. And, we're going to have fun tonight at your church doing a show. Yeah,
we got a show coming up.
35 more stories that you won't hear on the podcast. Just tonight only. Tickets are $600. No, it's free, isn't it?
It's free to them.
Free to them.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Hopefully not to me.
It's not free to you, brother. So that's the cool thing. Right? He's like, hey, I'm going to be up in town in your neck of the woods. Do you want to do a show? Yes. And we never mention price, but I think I always take good care of you.
You do. And then you were like, well, where do you work tomorrow? I said, I can't remember. Somewhere in Maine. So I'm driving from here to Maine to do a show in some town. I still don't know where it's at. I'll figure it out. I'll get there.
You'll get it there.
I will.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to According to John and
Unbridled.
Who invited him?
I don't know. Might be the last time.
Unbridled. And so I hope that you guys have enjoyed this podcast. And if you're looking for a comedian, please reach out to David Ferrell, thedavidferrell@gmail.com, and he will get up with you. And hopefully you will also have the enjoyment of having him having his show, and just being a part of his craziness. Guys, thank you for tuning me in, and as always, until next week, God bless.